This presentation was only been off feed for 4 hours. As a livestock carrier, I believe that animal welfare is our #1 issue in curfewing. If we don't look after the animals properly, they don't look after us. If they're not curfewed properly, they are hard to load, hard to unload, and they won't stand while in transit. Is travelling in a crate any different to a human standing on a boat, moving backwards and forth after a feed? I think not. Animals travelling full excrete due to stress. The sloppier it gets, the harder it is to stand, and then the more stress. Lambs on short curfews need more goading, more shouting, more dogging to load and unload. Lambs out of sale yards generally run on and off with less pressure due to being empty. The quieter you can load, the better the lambs usually travel. More pressure, more stress, more trouble. Loading facilities also come into the equation. Well-designed and maintained yards and loading facilities help to make up loading, unloading easier on all. Some of the loading races that I've come across are just a joke. In the last 6 months, I've loaded out of loading races that have included an old footrot bath propped up on a 44-gallon drum, a race made out of a bit of checker plate with farm gates on the side. These lambs were destined for export slaughter, so I'd ask the processors to work with us and try to get on-farm facilities improved. Another race where I was going to load was off lambs bought on Auctions Plus. When I had a look at it, I said to the farmer, "Gee, we're not loading out of that, are we?" And so he said, "Yeah, no, it'll be good." So then he presented to show me how strong it was and fell right through to his crutch. Then, of course, we still had to load 220-odd lambs, so we had to go and get some timbers and stuff and patch it up. And I'll bet you today that race is still the same as the day I left it. Many farmers and agents believe that livestock transporters only want longer curfews so we don't have to wash out, but this is not the case. The cost of washing out is usually included in the price. The dirtier the stock, the higher the price. Washing out is usually charged at around about that $60 to $100 an hour because you've got to pay for the wages and everything else for the drivers to do it. Water charges alone at Bendigo are 98 cents a minute. Pakenham's $1.40 a minute, and it takes around an hour to an hour and a half to wash out of 4 or 6 decks. If, as one abattoir owner insists all crates must be washed prior to loads, like each load, the cost of the freight will rise. So you might be getting more per lamb, but with all these other things, it may not quite get into your pocket. Weather, the season, distance to market, and breeder sheep are all considerations to be taken into account when you're curfewing. Dorpers and Damaras need more time off feed than any other breeds. Carriers at Acadium out of Western New South Wales are going for 36 hours before they even load it to trying to make it so they'll stand up and travel on the load. There's nothing worse than get to the other end and finding you've got a truckload of dead sheep. Effluent tanks, as Stuart was saying before about keeping the effluent on trucks. Effluent tanks are fitted to some trucks, but the industry is refusing to make these as standard until governments put dump points on all major roads. At present, if you're running dump tanks, you've got to pull up on the side of the road somewhere and just let it all go. And you don't want it and we don't want that. It's just bad for the industry. These tanks only help to curb effluent spill, not stop it. In the case of an effluent spill, who owns the effluent? Not the carrier. Under chain of responsibility laws, an effluent spill that needs to be cleaned up or causes an accident could come back as far as the producer. JBS Brooklyn, as part of their entrance security, inquire which way you've come in so they can trace back any spills after we come off the freeways. It was interesting to see the reaction to the YouTube video of dead lambs in a paddock. Every mobile phone nowadays is a camera. So as we're going down the road, we're constantly being filmed. As an association, we get calls from the people who see lambs, just with a leg out of the crate or a lamb sitting down at the traffic lights or whatever, and they Google the phone number of the LTAV, and they'll say, ring that truck and get it fixed. Well, we don't know where the trucks are or where they are, but they think that we know where everything's going. This is an example of the scrutiny that we endure after we leave the farm. So in closing, I'd just like to say that as livestock carriers, we are a link in the chain, but to get the product to the market in the best possible condition, producers and agents must work with us to prepare the stock in a manner that takes into account best practice to ensure animals can be loaded and delivered with as little stress as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.